All right, today we're going to be doing lecture 30, Systems of Equations by Elimination, Adding and Subtracting. So when we have a system of equations, we really have two or more equations to deal with. For the most part, when we do elimination, you'll see them written like this. The first equation will have the form ax plus by equals c. That'll be my first equation. And then you might see a second equation that has the form dx plus ey is equal to f. Both of these equations are in standard form. Both of these equations are in standard form. And we know this because x and y are on the same side. X and y are on the same side. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be solving these by adding or subtracting. You're either going to be adding or subtracting. And hopefully when you do that, you can eliminate a variable so that you can get 0x or 0y. And then once you figure out what x and y are, you can write them as an ordered pair, where x comes first and y comes second. So let's try a couple of these problems. I'm going to be looking at the classwork, questions 1 and 3. So let's try number 1 together. Number 1 says negative x minus 2y is equal to negative 21. That's my first equation. And then the bottom equation is x plus y is equal to 13. That'll be my second equation. So what I want to do is I want to either add or subtract. Now, how do you know which one you're going to choose? You're going to look at the numbers in front of the variables. Notice that in front of the x's, you have a negative 1 right here and a positive 1 right here. So if you were to add these two numbers, you would get negative 1 plus 1 is equal to 0. So the x will be eliminated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a plus sign off to the side in parentheses. And then we'll add these two lines and see what we get. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the x terms. Negative 1x plus positive 1x is going to give you 0x. You can write 0x if you'd like to, or if you don't want to, you don't have to, because 0 times x is going to give you 0 anyways. So I'm going to erase that. Next, we move on to the y's. When I add the y's, I have a negative 2y on top, and I have a positive 1y on the bottom. So negative 2 plus 1 is going to give you negative 1y. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the regular numbers on the right side. Over here, I have a negative 21, a positive 13. If I were to add these two numbers up, I would be getting negative 8. So now we've eliminated the x. Those actually cancel out. So we can cross out the x terms like this. And now to get y by itself, we need to get rid of this negative 1 somehow. And I'm going to do that by dividing both sides by negative 1. So I'm going to divide this side by negative 1 and this side by negative 1. So what's going to happen is on the left side, the negative 1s are going to cancel out. They're going to divide to give me positive 1. And then I'm only left with a y on the left side. On the right side, I have negative 8 divided by negative 1, and that's going to give me a positive 8. So now I know the answer for y. Y is equal to 8. That's good. But I still need to figure out what x is. So on the other side, we're going to figure out what x is. To do that, you need to back substitute. You can choose the top equation to plug back into, or you can use the bottom equation to plug back into. And I usually choose whichever one is easiest, so I'm going to choose the bottom equation. The bottom equation is x plus y equals 13. So I write out my original bottom equation, and I'm going to substitute in for y. I know that y is 8, so everywhere I see a y, I can replace it with an 8. So I get x plus 8 equals 13. So now the last thing I need to do to get x by itself is to get rid of that 8. And I can do that by subtracting 8 from both sides. When I do that, the x is going to come down. The 8s are going to cancel out. And then 13 minus 8 is going to give you 5. So I get x is equal to 5. That's going to be the answer for my x. So I'm going to put a box around that. Now that I know what x and y are, I can write my answer as an ordered pair. Now, when I write my ordered pair, I always put x first and y second. So I'm going to put in 5 for x and 8 for y. And that's my answer. So that your answer is actually going to be an ordered pair, which means it's going to be a point on the graph. Now, what you can do to check your answer is you can graph both of the equations and see where the lines cross. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Desmos, and I'm going to type in the top equation first. That was negative x minus 2y is equal to negative 21. I get that purple line that you see. My bottom equation was x plus y equals 13. And that's going to be that black line that you see. And wherever these two lines cross is going to be your solution. And my solution for this one is going to be 5, 8. That's exactly what I got right here, 5, 8. So that's a really cool way that you can check your answer. Let's try number 3. For number 3, they give me 10x minus 8y is 26. And for my bottom equation, they give me 8x minus 8y is equal to 24. So what I want to do for this problem is I want to either add or subtract to get 0x or 0y. Now, notice that the x numbers do not match up. I have a 10 and an 8. And there's no way that I can get 0x from that. But if you look at the y numbers, they match up, right? I've got a negative 8 on top and a negative 8 on the bottom. So am I going to add or am I going to subtract? If I was to add, I would get negative 8 plus negative 8 is negative 16y. But I want to get 0y, so that's not going to work. Instead, I'm going to subtract the two lines. So that way, negative 8 minus negative 8 is 0y. But since it's 0y, you don't necessarily have to write that. Let's do the x terms first. I've got 10x minus 8x. What's that going to give you? That's going to give you 2x. The y's will cancel out. And then on the other side, we need to remember to subtract the regular numbers. 26 minus 24 is 2. So now I've got 2 times x is equal to 2. To get x by itself, I need to divide both sides by 2. So I'm always dividing by the number that's in front of the x, the 2. So when I do that, the 2's will cancel out, and I'm left with x on this side. And then on the right side, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So now I know what x is. X is going to be positive 1. So I'll put a box around that. The next thing we need to do is figure out what y is. Now, I don't know what y is right now, but what we can do is we can plug back into one of these equations to figure out what it is. You can choose the top equation or the bottom equation. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, because if you do the math right, you'll get the same answer each time. So I'm going to choose the bottom equation because it looks the easiest. I have 8x minus 8y is 24. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug back in the number that I just found. I know that x is 1. So that means I can replace every single x I see with a 1. So let's do that. I'm going to let x be 1, but I'm going to keep everything else the same. Now I can multiply 8 times 1. That's going to give me 8. Keep everything else the same for now. So what I want to do now is I want to get y by itself. To get rid of this positive 8, I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. When I do that, the 8's are going to cancel out like this. 8 minus 8 is actually 0, so you don't need to write that. And then I'm going to bring down the negative 8y and the equal sign. On the other side, I have 24 minus 6. Sorry, minus 8. 24 minus 8 is 16. So now the last thing that I need to do is get rid of this negative 8 that's out in front. And I can do that by dividing both sides by negative 8. And when I do that, the negative 8's are going to cancel. Now I'm only left with a y on the left side. The right side is going to be 16 divided by negative 8, which is negative 2. So that's going to be my answer for the y value. Now that I know what x and y are, I can finally write my ordered pair. Just make sure you put the x number first. So 1, negative 2. That's going to be my ordered pair. So now let's graph these two equations and see where they cross. I'm going to go to Desmos, get rid of my first two, and I'm going to type in the top equation and the bottom equation. 10x minus 8y equals 26. My bottom equation was 8x minus 8y is equal to 24. What you'll notice is the two lines are going to cross at one point. That's going to be this point right here. 1, negative 2. And that's exactly what I got right here.